While browsing the creepier corners of the internet, you likely encountered unsettling images taken from trail cameras. In these, we find everything from would-be Bigfoot sightings, creepypasta-worthy horrors, and disturbing human silhouettes. The thing is though, 99% of these images and videos are either digitally edited creations or staged photo ops carefully designed to be creepy and go viral. Well, the other 1%, that's what I want to talk about today. From wanted killers captured on trail cam at the forest's edge, to a vigilante trap setter caught endangering mountain bikers, and a rogue police officer terrifying the public, let's explore this collection of trail cam images with real and disturbing backstories. The Bike Trail Sabotage Incident. The Blue Mountain Reservation, located in New York's Westchester County, is one of the state's premier parks, covering a whopping 1,538 acres of land. For decades, it served as a place where enthusiasts of the outdoors can gather and share their appreciation of nature with a multitude of trails for parkgoers to enjoy. Of course, one of the main groups that frequent these trails are mountain bikers, rightly so, as they are permitted. While most hikers don't seem to mind their presence, there was one prominent incident in which a disgruntled citizen launched a war against these riders for seemingly no reason other than him being annoyed by them. It all began in 2024 when several bikers began noticing an uptick in debris blocking their paths. Now, this is a common nuisance you find on these trails, and most people would simply assume that it was the work of nature. However, they soon became suspicious that there was actually a human involved here. This was due to the fact that the logs and sticks were always placed in seemingly intentional positions where they would cause harm to a rider, and the frequency and pattern in which they were finding the debris, it just didn't make sense for it to be natural. It's pretty disturbing to think that someone would be essentially placing traps that could hurt or kill someone on a bike. But considering the pattern of debris and how often it was being found, a human interloper was a grim possibility they had to consider. Malicious incidents like this are not unheard of. There have been cases of mountain bikers being critically injured by booby traps set by disgruntled outdoorsmen, typically taking the form of barbed wire being strung up at chest level between two trees and placed in the middle of a path with the intent to do harm or dissuade bikers from riding through. Incidents like this have occurred on both public and privately owned property. The worry that something akin to this was at play resulted in numerous complaints being made to authorities, with sources later reporting that an official investigation had been launched in the fall of 2024. This entailed officers roaming through the woods, hoping to catch the would-be trap setter red-handed. Despite this, the serial log dragger always seemed to elude capture, with bikers consistently having to deal with the issues that he made. The mountain biking groups grew increasingly concerned that someone riding may not be paying attention and harm themselves, or at worst, even get a serious head or neck injury that could lead to death. Wanting to do something about the issue, a local organization called the Westchester Mountain Biking Association decided to take matters into their own hands, discreetly installing a trail camera at one of the debris hotspots. The deployed trail camera later captured footage that would prove their theory. It had all been the work of a disturbed human being. The initially captured video, which was later uploaded to social media, clearly shows a man dragging sticks and branches directly into the middle of a biking path. As damning as this video evidence might seem, it unfortunately wouldn't lead to anything substantial in terms of nailing the suspect, since the offender's face wasn't clearly visible. Months would go by without any leads, but the bikers refused to give up their search. Fortunately, they caught a break in the latter half of April, capturing a clearer shot of the criminal on the trail cam. It wasn't long before police discovered the man's identity, with the culprit being a 44-year-old man named Jeffrey Jarvis, who lived in the nearby town of Peekskill. According to a statement released by the Westchester Police Department, he was officially charged on April 29th and was booked at police headquarters in Hawthorne, with his initial trial date being set for May 19th. The news of the strange story quickly spread, with residents shocked and confused as to why Jarvis would do such a thing. ABC 7, a New York-based news outlet, would report that Jeffrey had been charged with second-degree criminal nuisance, a misdemeanor that could result in jail time or a fine up to $500. They interviewed Sam Lee, the member of the club that had placed the trail camera. In this interview, he discusses his disappointment with how Jarvis had handled the situation.
If you're a disgruntled trail user and you don't like what you see, you should notify the landowner, the park staff, and start from there before doing anything as a vigilante.
This statement from Sam seems to indicate he believed the guy was simply a hiker who became annoyed by the cyclists and wanted to teach them a lesson for riding on the trails they were allowed to ride on. Despite all of this coverage, the motivations behind the now criminally charged man's actions are still unclear, and any conversation discussing it is only conjecture. Jarvis did not have a known criminal record, and by all accounts, he was a relatively normal guy, at least to those who knew him. ABC7 did an interview with Jarvis's neighbor, who vouched for his character on the record.
There must be a reason, I have no clue, but he's been a very good guy, very good neighbor, awesome family. So, yeah, it's shocking, yeah.
Unfortunately, the coverage on Jarvis mostly ceased after this, with it being rather nebulous as to what Jeffrey's punishment ended up being. Whatever his motivation, hopefully the man learned his lesson and never attempts to interfere with innocent mountain bikers again. Trail camera catches violent prison escapee. When a con manages to sneak out of prison, if they're smart, they'll head into the woods and travel as far away as possible under the obfuscating canopy of the wilderness. But in the modern age, this once relatively foolproof tactic is losing its efficacy thanks to trail cam technology. As outlined in an extensive article written by the BBC, Danilo Cavalcante, a natural-born Brazilian citizen, first got himself in trouble back in 2017 after killing a man, shooting him 6 times. As the story goes, he was pursued by local authorities but managed to flee the country of Brazil, eventually winding up in the United States. At first, he laid low in Pennsylvania and evaded capture, even landing himself a girlfriend while on the run, a woman named Deborah Brandow, who coincidentally was also from Brazil. It seemed things were going well on the run for the criminal, but everything took a turn for the worse after he grew increasingly irritated with his lover, with the two eventually breaking up as his behavior became more and more abusive, and that got the attention of police. Things got so bad she filed a protective order against the guy. Now you would think that this would result in him being identified as an on-the-run international criminal, but sadly, it didn't. Somehow he still fell through the cracks and police didn't realize who this guy was. The abuse would continue even with the protective order, and in a fit of rage, Danilo repeatedly stabbed the mother in front of her young children on April 8th of 2021, being caught by authorities and jailed soon after. Facing life in prison and seeing no way out of his circumstances, the murderer decided that he would take matters into his own hands. Utilizing a narrow passageway, Cavalcante climbed the incarceration facility walls and managed to escape the prison yard. Authorities noticed his absence soon after, and they put out a call to the public asking for help to find him. Days passed and his capture seemed more unlikely. However, police would soon catch a lucky break. You see, Cavalcante seemed to only travel at night through the woods, and as such, some of the areas were equipped with trail cams that snapped his photo. ABC Action News 6 reported on September 8th that he was caught on camera at Longwood Gardens, a public garden area located nearby. The article also explains that there had been several sightings reported by citizens, with many frightened by the still-at-large criminal. Despite this new lead, the murder suspect would continue to elude their grasp. Unfortunately, they hadn't discovered the photo until a day later, but it was still an incredibly important find that allowed law enforcement to move in and significantly narrow down their search. The story garnered attention in both Brazil and the United States, and the man's capture was inevitable with all of this hype. Authorities would finally track him down several days later, with NPR writing that they were able to find him after he tripped a burglar alarm. They also utilized thermal imaging techniques as well as police dogs, taking him in once and for all. The man was in hot water beforehand, but this new set of crimes landed him in even more trouble, with a multitude of charges being levied at him. he had committed additional crimes when he was on the run. This included stealing a rifle from a homeowner and stealing food multiple times. The man is currently serving out his life sentence after pleading guilty, with his escape forfeiting any appeals he could possibly make to his original conviction.
As you can see, trail cam imagery is pretty effective when it comes to catching criminal perpetrators, but it's not so great at stopping digital threats. I mean, just go ahead and Google yourself. Right now, your full name, email, phone number, home address, and date of birth are likely floating around on the internet, leaving you at risk for hacking threats and, even worse, potential stalkers. You have opportunistic data brokers to thank for your info being out there on the web, and today's sponsor Incogni can help you get it removed for good. Incogni does the hard work for you, tracking down the data brokers that have your information and submitting information removal requests on your behalf. When signing up for Incogni, I was shocked to find how much of my personally identifying info was out there. Incogni indicated 245 instances of my personally identifying information on the web, and they sent requests to take down each occurrence. Within a few days, they got my data off the internet for good, and many of the data brokers were compelled to add me to a suppression list, meaning they won't be able to get my data in the future. Guys, I'm telling you, you'll be shocked to find how much information about yourself is on the web when you do your first Incogni scan. So take back your personal data with Incogni. Go to incogni.com/wavywebsurf or click the link below and use code WAVYWebsurf at checkout to get 60% off an annual plan. Big thanks to Incogni for sponsoring the video.
Man accidentally takes incriminating selfie on stolen trail cam. The stories we've discussed thus far involve some sort of illegal act being caught by trail camera that either happened to be close by or was intentionally placed in an effort to catch a potential criminal. Well, in one amusing incident, the criminal actually went and just got the camera himself. Most of the information regarding this case comes directly from the Hendersonville, North Carolina Police Department. As the story goes, on November 24, 2024, a man decided to break into a home on Gilliam Mountain Road, which was situated near the small town of Edneyville. Unfortunately for the thief, he would end up stealing the one thing that could bring him to justice: a trail camera. This particular model was able to be connected to by the owner's cell phone, and in the man's attempt to take out the device's battery, he accidentally took a photo of his face. The owner, now having a photo of the guy that broke into his shit, sent the image to the cops. When police got their hands on the photo, they posted it to Facebook, encouraging citizens to send in any information they might have in an effort to identify the guy.
The sheriff's office is looking for this suspect who accidentally snapped a selfie while stealing a trail camera. Deputies say the trail camera was stolen from a home on Masters Boulevard March 15th at around 7 p.m. So if you have any information on who this person is, you are asked to call the Anderson County Sheriff's Office.
The thing that makes this post unique, however, is the fact that police were so dumbfounded by the culprit's stupidity that they outright mocked him in it, stating, quote, "Folks, we can't fix stupid, but we can arrest it." The humorous nature of this resulted in other outlets covering the story, with this "folks, we can't fix stupid" tagline being brought up a lot. The comments underneath were just as brutal, with several people implying that he looked like a meth head. Of course, the police would eventually be able to identify the guy, who turned out to be a man named Mark Irvin Crook. And no, that's not a joke, that is legitimately the guy's last name. The irony of this man's name certainly wasn't lost on police, who posted another update to Facebook that ended with the sentence, quote, "He seems to be living up to his last name," unquote. Crook was later charged with felony breaking and entering and felony larceny. His current activities and whereabouts are unknown. Wife killer is caught by trail camera. Eric Reinbold's story starts in 2018, after he was arrested for being in possession of pipe bombs as well as the materials used to create them. The District of Minnesota's Attorney's Office posted a statement at the time, revealing that he had even kept detailed notes on how to construct these dangerous explosives, with the man receiving a 5-year federal prison sentence because of this. Other sources also reported that he had wrote about overthrowing the U.S. government, with Reinbold clearly being an unstable lunatic. Many breathed a sigh of relief as he hadn't actually gotten the chance to use any of these dangerous explosives to harm anyone. They thought that he had been stopped for good. While nobody realized it at the time, this would unfortunately only be the beginning of this guy's demented behavior. According to later court documents, while his initial sentence was set to last half a decade, Reinbold would be granted an early passionate release in March of 2021. For those of you who aren't aware, this passionate release thing essentially means he was being given a commuted sentence due to extenuating circumstances such as family or medical related reasons. It's like the court feels bad for you. In this specific instance, it was argued that Eric needed to be released in order to help his wife, who he claimed was suffering mental health issues and was struggling to support their children. The COVID virus and its alleged impact on his family members also played a significant factor. While you would hope the deranged criminal would use this as a stepping stone to a better and more productive life, this would of course not be the case. On July 9th, only months after his release, police would be called after Eric's children discovered the dead body of their mother, Lisette. Upon examination, she had multiple fatal stab wounds to her neck, with a manhunt being initiated in an effort to catch the would-be terrorist-turned-murderer. According to North Dakota-based news outlet KVVR, it was deduced from testimony by his children as well as messages later obtained via warrant that Reinbold killed his wife due to the belief that she was having an affair. Relations between the two were so bad that he wasn't even living with her at the time, instead residing in a trailer down the road. Unfortunately, while they had a definitive motive, they were unable to locate Eric in the immediate aftermath of the murder. So they put out a call to the public, asking them to offer up any information they could to aid with this guy's capture. Reinbold was eventually caught almost a month later, with it being thanks to a cleverly placed trail camera. In a statement released by the Pennington County Sheriff's Office on August 4th, they revealed they had placed the camera in the woods surrounding his parents' house, having a hunch that it might lead them to his location. At approximately 9:30 p.m. the day prior, the camera went off, alerting authorities to Reinbold's whereabouts. They found and arrested him around 12:30 a.m., with his trial set to take place soon after. While the murderer had been lucky the first time around and given a shortened sentence, it goes without saying that this time he wouldn't get off so easily. In 2023, CBS News reported that he was sentenced to 40 years in prison, with him being found guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder in September of the previous year. The most recent update to this story came in 2025, in an article by the Grand Forks Herald. This article stated that Reinbold attempted to file an appeal to challenge his conviction. His reasoning was that his assigned lawyer had been incompetent. The killer argued that he had not been properly vetted for a defense based on mental health, amongst other things. However, this appeal was swiftly rejected due to the nature of his crime. The appeals court argued that this had no basis in reality, stating, quote, "None of Reinbold's cited reports supports a conclusion that he was suffering from a mental illness that kept him from knowing either the nature of his act or that it was wrong," unquote. This is where the story truly ends. He's locked up to this very day at the correctional facility located in Oak Park Heights, Minnesota, with his anticipated release date being in April of 2048. The elk poaching decapitator. In the United States, hunting is highly regulated, with the amount of animals you can hunt and the time of year that you can hunt them being restricted, in an effort to keep wild animal populations at healthy levels. Some animals are even off limits at all for hunting due to them being protected species. Violating these rules results in heavy fines and at times prison sentences. And with government wildlife resource agencies and private landowners now having trail cameras monitoring the forests, poachers are being exposed more than ever. The story of the elk poacher begins back on a morning in August of 2015. An at the time unknown man and an accomplice went into the forest and shot an adult male elk, killing it. It was later discovered that instead of doing what an honorable hunter would do and use the entire animal for meat and hide, he simply chose to cut off its head as a trophy and leave the body to decay. As if that wasn't bad enough, the man had been illegally trespassing on land that wasn't his when he made the kill, with the incident taking place near the Pearson Ranch located in Nevada's Lincoln County. It was a poached kill. Obviously, the gigantic rotting corpse of an elk is going to get noticed pretty quickly, with an investigation being launched by wildlife authorities. They would catch their first break soon. According to 2 News Nevada, a local rancher would come forward with trail cam footage that helped establish a clear timeline, with officials knowing exactly when and where the elk had been killed. The only problem with this is the quality was so grainy that the suspects' faces cannot be seen clearly. Nevertheless, they persisted in their investigation, putting out an official call to the public for any information that folks might have. Months would go by without any publicly available updates, but this changed in 2016, when the suspect was finally revealed to be a 26-year-old Utah native named Zachary Holdaway. An in-depth report from AP News revealed that it had initially been tricky getting a hold of him, as he had become a hunting guide in New Zealand in the time since the killing. Police were somewhat vague about the methods used to prove the man's guilt, but they did say they were able to track Holdaway down by monitoring his social media. He was arrested soon after, but was released on a $10,400 bail, with his initial court date set to take place on August 2nd of 2016. The ones responsible for Zachary's capture were obviously very pleased with the result, as shown in the comments made to the press. Chief Nevada Game Warden Tyleb Turnipseed would later state, quote, "We view big game poaching as our biggest crime, like a homicide. You can imagine trying to solve a homicide with no witnesses and very little physical evidence in the middle of the desert. On the surface, it might seem absurd to you to treat this crime with such magnitude, but it's important to note that it had been a particularly egregious breaking of hunting laws by a guy who knew exactly what he was doing." Zachary was an experienced hunter familiar with the regulations. He wasted precious resources of wildlife agents and desecrated the animal. All of these factors led to authorities really throwing the book at him when his trial rolled around. He was sentenced to pay $20,000 in fines, being given a 3-year suspended sentence, and having any hunting licenses that he may have possessed revoked for 6 years. While poaching happens all the time in the United States, I think this case is interesting because it really puts you guys on notice if you're out there poaching animals. A trail camera may be watching you and you may get busted. It's not as easy as it used to be. The Wyoming trail camera ghoul. Despite the harrowing image associated with this story, it's actually quite a bit more lighthearted than you would initially think. It's one that involves a cantankerous police officer on the hunt for a wild animal. It all begins on May 8th of 2023. The Evansville, Wyoming Police Department makes a post to their Facebook page with the caption reading, "While investigating an issue down by Veterans Bridge, we found very large prints in the mud that appear to be from a mountain lion. A camera was placed along one of the trails to catch the wildlife that we have here in town. If you know anyone that is scared of the dark, please pass this along to them so they see there is nothing to be afraid of." This was fairly standard stuff from a local law enforcement office, with the post seeming pretty ordinary at first glance. However, if you continue scrolling through the numerous trail camera photos attached, you'll eventually stumble across a few that showcase a mysterious humanoid monster creeping through the woods. It appeared to be a disturbed man. Despite obviously being a man in a mask, it's still extremely unsettling, and people were concerned about this. Who was out there mucking about like this? And what were their intentions? I mean, this thing looks straight out of a creepypasta. Internet users quickly picked up on this post, and it would receive over 400 likes as buzz started brewing. The local community was very much disturbed by the post, believing their town was being descended on by some mentally ill serial killer lunatic. As panic in the local area began to spread, police chimed in, responding to the public concern, explaining that they had actually discovered this was some sort of hoax, perpetrated by, well, them. An article by Cowboy Slate Daily was soon released covering the situation, and it included an interview with the perpetrator, who was revealed to be none other than Chief of Police Mike Thompson. Why, Mike? Just why? As the initial Facebook post alluded to, officers were attempting to track down a mountain lion that had been active in the area. Thompson had set up the trail cam in an attempt to catch the animal in the act, but he didn't have any luck. So with the whole trail cam surveillance being a big waste of time up to this point, the man decided to have a bit of fun and took the scary photos in question. He said the act was at least partially inspired by previous Halloween antics perpetrated by the local fire department. The officials in this town really are just a bunch of goobers, aren't they? The chief said this: "We're kind of known for scary things anyways. That was the mask I used in the haunted hay maze. People have responded to the post mostly in a positive way. There have been a few negative comments, but most people appreciated it." While it is admittedly disappointing that a humanoid monster wasn't roaming the Wyoming wilderness, it's still nice to have a wholesome story in the mix. The Vance Boelter political killings. This is a story involving a politically motivated murder suspect getting busted thanks to trail cam imagery from a private citizen. The spree began on the morning of June 14, 2025, when a man disguised as a police officer arrives at the home of Minnesota House of Representative Melissa Hortman. Not long after arriving, this individual shoots her and her husband Mark, killing them. Decked out in all tactical gear and wearing a disturbing silicone mask, the man continues his rampage, later arriving at Senator John Hoffman's house and injuring him and his wife Yvette. As it would turn out, these vicious attacks were carried out by a deranged 57-year-old man named Vance Boelter, with both state and federal authorities scrambling to find his whereabouts. Initially, many were shocked and appalled, wondering if his motivations had been political, as both politicians had been Democrats. An article from the New York Times reveals much about Boelter's history, which is very much peculiar. In a strange twist, this guy had actually served on the state's Workforce Department Board, being appointed by Tim Walz. Senator Hoffman had also served on this same board, with the two allegedly having a professional video call with each other back in 2022, though this doesn't seem to have had any significant bearing on him being chosen as a target. More interestingly, Boelter was a higher up at a private security firm that specialized in providing armed guards. This would help explain how he was able to secure weaponry so easily and disguise himself as a law enforcement officer. The manhunt would continue over the next day, with police issuing several warnings to the general public, but he would eventually be caught. One interesting detail that most news outlets haven't brought much attention to is the fact that, well, a trail cam played a large role in Vance's capture. Fox 9 reported that a citizen of Green Isle, Minnesota became alerted to Boelter's presence on their property after a trail camera went off and captured a disturbing image of him. The image lined up with their search, as this was near where they had found his abandoned vehicle earlier while investigating the area. They quickly geared up and surrounded him, with the murderer being arrested around 9 p.m. While his capture was likely inevitable, there's no doubt about it the trail cam sped things up a bit. His motivations would also become abundantly clear as new evidence was revealed to the public. On Monday, June 16th, 2 days after the crime had taken place, a statement addressing the arrest was released by the Department of Justice's Office of Public Affairs. It detailed how the incident had taken place step by step, and is where my summary of the crime from earlier came from. It also went on to reveal that this had been a targeted political attack, as Boelter had a lengthy list of Democratic lawmakers, with the intention obviously being to kill as many of them as possible. In addition to this, he had initially shown up at the doorstep of 2 additional politicians, but they thankfully hadn't been home at the time to answer it. Another aspect of the story is that Boelter had disguised his vehicle, a Ford Explorer, as a police car, which explained part of the reason why he had managed to successfully disguise himself so well. While politically motivated, both sides of the aisle publicly condemned the shootings, with Trump-appointed Attorney General Pam Bondi stating, quote, "These horrific acts of violence will not go unanswered. The Department of Justice will prosecute this suspect to the fullest extent of the law, and if convicted, deliver severe consequences for his alleged crimes." However, this would only be the start of the issue, as Boelter would slowly and surely reveal himself to be an even more mentally unstable individual than originally was thought. In the immediate aftermath of his arrest, he agreed to an interview with the New York Post, which was released on July 12th. While he insisted his motivations had nothing to do with personal political beliefs, it was discovered that he had written a letter to FBI Director Kash Patel admitting that they were politically motivated crimes. He bizarrely claimed that he had been specially trained by military forces, saying that he had been told by Tim Walz, the Democratic governor of Minnesota, to carry out the killings. As reported by AP News, Boelter was later indicted on 6 counts of murder, stalking, and firearms-related charges. Despite all of the overwhelming evidence against him, he still initially pled not guilty, a claim that he maintains to this day. A week later, the political assassin was hit with even more charges, which now included, quote, impersonating a police officer and animal cruelty for shooting one family's dog. At the moment, this murder trial is still ongoing, with the media consistently providing updates to the general public regarding it. The most recent of these updates came on August 16th, when Vance did yet another interview with the New York Post. This time, he raved about how Tim Walz was a, quote, traitor, who would always talk to him about how great China was, with Boelter stating that the politicians that were on his hit list were those who had been compromised by China. As of writing, this is where the story stands with Boelter. His future is uncertain, but it's wild to think an innocuously placed trail camera potentially saved the lives of numerous other lawmakers. As if he wasn't stopped, they were gonna be next. And well, you made it to the end of the video. Let me know what you guys thought about it down below in the comments section, and let me know who or what you want me to talk about next. I want to give a major shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys. Wavy Web Surf out. Peace.